So today's video is going to be a little different because I'm going to explain a page worth of linguistics just to show you something I think is kind of cool. So put your hand on your throat. If you happen to be reading a script about aspiration, or, speaking in general, you'll notice it vibrates. Now, not all of the sounds you make vibrate your neck. P, t, k, f, th, s, sh, h, and ch, if you have it, are what's called voiceless, which means they don't vibrate in the throat. While the consonants b, d, g, v, th, z, j, l, r, n, m, ng, and r, if you have it, are voiced, as well as all of the vowels. You can match up these consonants up against each other so that one is just the whispered equivalent of the other, except they aren't quite equivalent, so to speak. If you whisper p, t, k, you may notice that there's a significant difference between them and p, t, k, and that's what this video is about. If you hold up your hand in front of your face, ow! Dang it, I can't believe I fell for that. If you hold a sheet of paper over your mouth, you'll notice that p, t, k kick the piece of paper away from your mouth in a way that b, d, g simply don't. But that's just the physical mechanism. The actual effect it has on the words is more interesting. So, going back to voicing, let's talk about h. The idea is that h is the voiceless equivalent of a vowel. Let's say that the position of this line corresponds to the letter and the bar on top is voicing. Then a word like hat is shaped identically to at. And if you remove voicing from the equation by whispering, then the two are identical, although it's not as if our brains are unaware of this, which is why we sometimes eliminate this problem by upgrading h to h in a whisper. So what aspiration does is that it means the h gets stuck on the end of the p or the t or the k. So look at these two Spanish words. Neato. You can see the only difference between the two is that this one has no voicing here and the other one has some voicing here. Here are the English versions. Are you seeing the difference? Now, ch is actually exempt from this because only the t part of it is aspirated, so the devoicing only affects the sh, which is already devoiced. And there's another case when none of them aspirate after s. Why? Well, the same reason that unk doesn't appear at the start of a word, the hierarchy of aspiration. Syllable is like a structure that starts with a high amount of breath and descends to a low amount of breath and finally returns to a high. So here's how the hierarchy goes. At the top are the fricatives, so called because the two parts of your mouth making sound are close together, and you need a lot of breath to force the air through. And at the top of the top are the sibilants, which use a rounded tongue shape to force the air to a fine point. From there come the plosives, p, t, k, b, d, g. They hold the breath back and release it all at once. The nasals, approximants, where the mouth parts are just held together, but it only shapes the sound instead of hindering it. And finally vowels, where there's no obstruction at all. But the increased breath release would put the plosives p, t, k above the fricatives. This is normally no problem, but in syllables like spot, screen, splendor, or subscribe, ow! It would bypass the hierarchy, so in that position the plosives fail to be aspirated. This is why you can't tell the difference between disgust and disgust. Now, this only happens if it's in the same syllable, and s is only going to jump to another syllable if it's all part of the same word. For example, disturb is an old word, and it's no longer just dis plus turb. But distrust is dis plus trust. So disturb, but distrust. That was all you needed to know to understand how cool this thing is. So, there's this old game called Drive Ahead. It was pretty fun, but they beefed it up and added online and microtransactions, and you get the picture. This isn't a game review channel. So, this is one of the playable cars in the game, and it's called the school bus. That makes sense. And as we just learned, the K is de-aspirated. But here's another car in the game, the school bus. Now, the joke is that these two are pronounced the same, but they aren't. School is part of the same word, so it's aspirated, but it's cool is not, so it aspirates. And here's the real mind bender. The ch in school is a transliteration of the Greek letter chi, which was originally pronounced as an aspirated k sound, as opposed to the de-aspirated gappa. But somehow, through the complicated rules of English, school is pronounced with no aspiration, and school is pronounced with aspiration.